elasticity. So firstly, we should know the meaning of elasticity. Elasticity is the responsiveness of demand or supply to a change in price. Elasticity varies among products because some products may be more essential to the consumer. Products that are necessities are more insensitive to price changes because consumers would continue buying these products despite price increases. To determine the elasticity of the supply or demand curves, we can use this simple equation. Elasticity equals to percentage change in quantity divided by percentage change in price. If elasticity is greater than or equal to 1, the curve is considered to be elastic. If it is less than 1, the curve is said to be inelastic. There can be various types of elasticity like price elasticity of demand, price elasticity of supply, income elasticity of demand, cross elasticity of demand, output elasticity, elasticity of substitution. After studying this lesson, you should be able to analyze the concept of elasticity of demand, classify the demand curves according to their elasticity, understand the concept of price, income, cross and advertising elasticity, analyze the supply elasticity and factors affecting it, analyze the relationship between elasticity and revenue. Now let's discuss classification of demand curves according to their elasticity. The classification of demand curves can be as under: perfectly inelastic demand curve, inelastic demand curve, unitary elastic demand curve, elastic demand curve, perfectly elastic demand curve. Elasticity of demand equals to percentage change in demand of good X divided by percentage change in price of good X. If the PED is greater than 1, the good is price elastic. Demand is responsive to a change in price. If, for example, a 15% fall in price leads to a 30% increase in quantity demanded, the price elasticity equals to 2.0. If the PED is less than 1, the good is inelastic. Demand is not very responsive to changes in price. If, for example, a 20% increase in price leads to a 5% fall in quantity demanded, the price elasticity equals to 0.25. If the PED is equal to 1, the good has unit elasticity. The percentage change in quantity demanded is equal to the percentage change in price. Demand changes proportionately to a price change. If the PED is equal to 0, the good is perfectly inelastic. A change in price will have no influence on quantity demanded. The demand curve for such a product will be vertical. If the PED is infinity, the good is perfectly elastic. Any change in price will see quantity demanded fall to 0. This demand curve is associated with firms operating in perfectly competitive markets. Price elasticity of demand. ED value. How total revenues or expenditures are affected by price changes. Price increases, price decreases. Term for elasticity of demand. When ED value is 0, term for elasticity of demand is perfectly inelastic. Price increases proportionally with price. Price decrease proportionally with price. When ED value is 0, less than ED, less than 1, term for elasticity of demand is relatively inelastic. Increase less than proportionally, decrease less than proportionally. The price elasticity of demand is related to but different from the slope of the demand curve. Consider the formula for calculating the slope of the demand curve. Slope equals to change in price divided by change in quantity demanded. Now consider the formula for calculating the price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand equals to percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. The key differences between these are: first, price is in the numerator and quantity is in the denominator for slope. In contrast, quantity is in the numerator and the price is in the denominator for elasticity. At the very least, slope is the inverse of elasticity. When one is bigger, the other is smaller. Second, slope is calculated using the measurement units for price and quantity. In contrast, elasticity is calculated using percentage changes. As such, slope includes the measurement units, such as dollars per hot fudge sundae, whereas elasticity is just a number with no measurement units. The value of slope changes if the measurement units change, such as cents versus dollars. Not so for elasticity. Elasticity is in relative values, not absolute measurement units. Three factors that affect the numerical value of the price elasticity of demand are the availability of substitutes, time period of analysis, and proportion of budget, which we will discuss one by one. Availability of substitutes. The ease with which buyers can find substitutes in consumption affects the price elasticity of demand. The general rule is that goods with a greater availability of substitutes are more easily sensitive to price changes. With more substitutes available, buyers can easily respond to price changes. Consider, for example, Auntie Noodles frozen macaroni dinner, an enjoyable, nutritious, and satisfying meal. Unfortunately for the Auntie Noodles company, it is one of the thousands of comparable food products on the market. The number of available substitutes makes the price elasticity of demand extremely elastic. Time period of analysis. The longer the time period of analysis, the more responsive quantities are to price changes. Brief periods do not allow buyers the time needed to adjust their consumption decisions to price changes. Buyers need time to find substitutes in consumption. Longer time periods allow buyers the time needed to find alternatives. For example, the demand for 4M cable television is not very elastic. Given the lack of close substitutes, buyers continue to buy even though prices rise, especially for brief periods like a few months. However, given enough time, years or decades, buyers are able to seek out alternatives such as satellite dishes and thus change their quantity demanded of cable television, resulting in a more elastic demand. Proportion of budget. The price elasticity of demand depends on the proportion of the budget that buyers devote to a good. The rule is this: the larger the portion, the more responsive quantity demanded is to price changes. A house, for example, is a big budget item for most normal human beings. A relatively small change, say 1% on a $100,000 house, can make a big difference in the buyer's decision to buy. As such, relatively small changes in price are likely to induce relatively large changes in quantity demand. Now, before we go further, firstly we should understand price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand, PED or ED, is a measure used in economics to show the responsiveness or elasticity of the quantity demanded of a good or service to a change in its price. More precisely, it gives the percentage change in quantity demanded in response to a 1% change in price, holding constant all the other determinants of demand such as income. For example, if the price of cigarettes fell by 20% and the price of salt fell by 20%, the increase in quantity demanded due to equal changes in prices would be different for salt and cigarettes. The salt and cigarettes are said to have a different price elasticity of demand. Various factors affecting demand elasticity include the number and closeness of substitutes. Number of uses the commodity satisfies. Time period. Proportion of income spent on the commodity. How narrowly the commodity is defined. Now let's discuss income elasticity of demand. In the second factor outlined above, we saw that if price increases while income stays the same, demand will decrease. It follows then that if there is an increase in income, demand tends to increase as well. The degree to which an increase in income will cause an increase in demand is called income elasticity of demand, which can be expressed in the following equation. EDY equals to Q current minus Q previous divided by Q previous divided by Y current minus Y previous divided by Y previous. ED equals to elasticity of demand. Q equals to quantity. Y equals to income. EDY equals to income elasticity of demand. If EDY is greater than 1, demand for the item is considered to have high income elasticity. If, however, EDY is less than 1, demand is considered to be income inelastic. Luxury items usually have higher income elasticity because when people have a higher income, they don't have to forfeit as much to buy these luxury items. Let's look at an example of a luxury good, like air travel. Now let's discuss cross-elasticity of demand. This is the relative response of demand to changes in the price of another good, or the percentage change in the demand for one good due to a percentage change in the price of the other good. This elasticity quantifies the other price's demand determinant. The formula used to calculate the coefficient cross-elasticity of demand is EAB equals to percentage change in demand of product A divided by percentage change in price of product B. Let's take an example for two goods. Fuel and cars consists of fuel consumption, which are complements. That is, one is used with the other. In these cases, the cross-elasticity of demand will be negative by showing decrease in demand for cars when the price of fuel increased, as we can see in the diagram for complement goods. Where the two goods are substitutes, the cross-elasticity of demand will be positive, so that as the price of one goes up, the demand of the other will increase. For example, in response to an increase in the price of carbonated soft drinks, the demand for non-carbonated soft drinks will rise. In the case of perfect substitutes, the cross-elasticity of demand is equal to positive infinity. The same is shown in the figure for substitute goods. Where the two goods are independent, the cross-elasticity of demand will be zero. As the price of one goods change, there will be no change in demand for the other good, as represented in diagram of independent goods. Now turn comes for price elasticity of supply. Price elasticity of supply, PES, is an elasticity defined as a numerical measure of the responsiveness of the supply of a given good to a change in the price of that good. Mathematically, ES equals to percentage change in quantity supplied divided by percentage change in price. Like demand elasticity, supply elasticity is of 5 types. Perfectly inelastic supply curve, inelastic supply curve, unitary elastic supply curve, elastic supply curve, perfectly elastic supply curve. Factors influencing elasticity of supply are time factor. There are 3 supply periods based on the time factor: the momentary period, the short period, and the long period. In the momentary time period, the elasticity of supply is 0. In the short run, supply is more elastic in the short run than in the momentary period. In the long run, all factors are variable, and so supply is more elastic than in the short run. Ability to store the product. Products which can be stored for longer periods are more able to react to price rises by releasing stocks or to price falls by building up stocks. Barriers to entry. Some industries restrict the entry of new firms into the market, and this influences the responsiveness of supply to changes in price. The behavior of costs as output changes. If costs rise steeply as output rises, so that there are heavy costs involved in purchasing extra factors of production, then this is likely to reduce the elasticity of supply of tomatoes. Revenue is income that a company receives from its normal business activities, usually from the sale of goods and services to customers. Total revenue is the total money received from the sale of any given quantity of output. A measure of the revenue generated per user or unit is called average revenue. Marginal revenue, MR, is the extra revenue that an additional unit of product will bring. It is the additional income from selling one more unit of a good, sometimes equal to price. The relation between price change, demand elasticity, and change in total revenue is important for a firm. It helps the firms to decide about the price. If a firm is aiming to maximize its sales, it should know whether its product is elastic or inelastic, because it should lower price in case of the former and raise price in the case of inelastic demand. Revenue is equal to price times quantity and is represented by the shaded rectangles. Elasticity measures the responsiveness of the quantity demanded to a change in price. The effect of a price change on revenue depends on the elasticity of demand. Relationship between price elasticity and marginal revenue. Total revenue is price into quantity. TR equals to P into Q. Marginal revenue is the change in total revenue by sale of unit output. MR equals to DTR divided by DQ. Using this relation, decision makers can easily know whether it is beneficial to change the price. If EP equals to 1, MR equals to 0. Thus, change in price will not cause any change in TR. If E is less than 1, MR is less than 0, TR decreases when price decreases and TR increases when price increases. If E is greater than 1, MR is greater than 0, TR increases if price decreases and vice versa. Relationship between price elasticity AR and MR. We know that P equals to AR and MR equals to AR, 1 minus 1 divided by EP. Thus, elasticity of price equals to average revenue divided by marginal revenue minus average revenue. Now let us check if we have understood the various concepts discussed in this lesson clearly. Elasticity. It measures the degree of responsiveness of demand or supply to change in price. Right or wrong? Right. Elasticity of supply. The responsiveness of market supply to change in the price of commodity. Right or wrong? Right. Marginal revenue is the revenue earned by the firm in the additional year. Right or wrong? Wrong. Now let's revise what we have studied till now. Elasticity of demand tells the degree of responsiveness of consumer to a price change. It is measured as percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. The arc elasticity is a measure of average elasticity, that is, the elasticity at the midpoint of the chord that connects the 2 points A and B on the demand curve defined by the initial and new price levels. The income elasticity of demand is a numerical measure of the degree to which quantity demanded responds to a change in income, other determinants of demand being kept constant. The cross-elasticity of demand is a numerical measure of the degree to which quantity demanded of a good responds to changes in the prices of the other commodities, the other determinants of demand being kept constant. There is only one type of identifiable elasticity of supply measuring the responsiveness of market supply to changes in the price of the product. The elasticity of supply, ES, is measured by using the formula ES equals to percentage change in quantity supplied divided by percentage change in price. Factors influencing elasticity of supply are time, ability to store the product, and barriers to entry.